Here's what we're talking about today, YouTube. This is actually a topic that comes up every now and then, and people go back and forth, and it's actually, how do I put this? It's one of the topics that I feel like people, for some reason, people that I otherwise value their intellect very highly, I find that when this particular topic comes up, their IQ drops by many, many points. Like, the way people talk about this specific issue, the discourse has not changed since like 2008. People have been on this exact level of like depth for over 10 years. I would say close to 15 years. I guess it started with this tweet. This actually came from the Ultimate community. Kongmunism, aka Cantrip. Cool dude. I'm a big fan of Cantrip. Played Mason for 3 hours last night with a 5-minute timer. We tried camping, playing Timeout Sonic, running away, planking, going Pac-Man. Not a single game went to time. So this is how it started. And then Practical TAS chimes in and says, possibly unpopular opinion. This is how you know you're in for some spicy goodness. Possibly unpopular opinion. Melee and ult should both. So now bringing Melee into it, if you're wondering how this got from ult world into Melee world. Now Melee's involved all of a sudden. Both Melee and Ultimate should test a 5-minute timer. Okay. Leffen responds, LMAO. So basically the way this argument works is if you're the sort of person that thinks that, you know, camping's bad, it's bad when matches go to time. And I get it. Fighting games, you know, they usually use like, what, a 99-second timer? In Melee, the timer is many, many minutes. 7 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. So PTAS is saying Melee and ult should both test a 5-minute timer. We got to lower the timer, make tournaments run faster, and make it so that there's fewer timeouts. Leffen chimes in with LMAO, and let me provide a little bit of context for Leffen chiming in with LMAO. It's because this exact argument has happened so many times. How do we speed the game up? Make timeouts less prevalent, I guess. Make camping less of a viable strategy. So the argument the argument for a shorter timer is, with a shorter timer, obviously, well, you know, tournaments should take shorter. Like, slow camping matches will take a shorter amount of time, and therefore you'll never, you know, currently a best of 5 set, if every game goes to time, would take half an hour. With a 5-minute timer, or sorry, half an hour, what's 8 times? This would be 8 times 5, which is 40. So 40 minutes, right? If you shorten the timer to 5 minutes, then it's, even if every single game goes to time, you're looking at no longer than 25 minutes for a best of 5. The problem, a lot of people would say, is when you shorten the timer, if you make the timer 5 minutes, for example, then you always feel like you're that much closer to a timeout being a reality. So more people will go for timeouts off the bat. And this is basically what Leffen and Mewtwo King, who also chimed in, were coming in to say. So Mewtwo King got, you know, lots of Mewtwo King responses, Leffen responses, blah, 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 blah. Wait, Practical TAS, I honestly thought you were joking on your post. I assure you, lower timer is the worst idea ever. If anything, adding 1 minute makes the timeout win condition more difficult to achieve, so that's better than lowering it for any Smash game. PTAS says, I didn't say it needs to change, I want to see it tested. I just want to experiment with it. Let's see how bad it really is. Only specific matchups and stages regularly hit 5-minute game lengths. Matches like Peach Samus on Dreamland, for example. And then Leffen basically says we shouldn't experiment with everything. You don't have to stick your foot in a meat grinder, you know? Okay, so the argument, this argument has been done again and again and again. Let me start by saying I agree with PTAS. I think we should test it. Because this exact fucking conversation has probably happened upwards of, I would say, 30 times in Smash Bros. History. 30, I would actually say the over-under for me might be like 30. I think it's this exact fucking conversation back and forth, taken on by different sides, has probably happened over 30 times in Smash Bros. History. I am sick to death of hearing about it. I think we should test it out. I think PTAS is right. By the way, I should finish by saying that the usual argument, the way it goes, so again, it's level 1 is, hey, we should extend the timer because, we should shorten the timer because matches need to take a shorter amount of time. Then the next step is people say, but if we shorten the timer, more people will play for timeouts. So tournaments will, on average, actually take longer. Because even though you've shortened the timer in any given match, everyone's going to be playing for timeouts because you now have a 5-minute timer. And then the next step, however, is usually then people say, well, hear me out, though. People don't actually mind timeouts. Timeouts themselves are hype. The boring part is the middle chunk of timeouts. The middle chunk of timeouts where you're bored because there's 4 minutes left and nothing's happening. The last 30 seconds are always fucking hype. And to demonstrate this, let me pull up Shroomed versus Soft from Skatar, the ending of which might have been the most hype ending I've ever seen to almost any set. So it's the final game of the set. There are 21 seconds left. And Shroomed is up. So Shroomed knows at this point, look, all I gotta do, I mean, I can even get hit once or twice, it's okay. Unless he hits me 4 or 5 times, I win. So Shroom's just dash dancing, nice power shield, getting even more damage, it's over. 5, 4, and Shroom goes, there's 3 seconds left. Puff can't even combo dock that hard. I'm literally just gonna stand still and taunt. And he gets fucking rested because he forgets that Puff has a fucking kill move. He thought his only goal was don't get fucking hit. He thought his only goal was just don't get hit 3 times. There's no way Puff can make up the deficit. And Puff did not make up the deficit. Puff is still behind in terms of percent. He doesn't taunt. Again, let's watch it. He doesn't taunt. Jumps on the platform, taunts, and gets rested. Zoo's right behind him. And Dewan makes this face. But as you can see, Shroomed actually wins. Because before he dies off the side, the timer gets called. And Shroomed wins anyway. But this was the most roller coaster of emotions to probably any Melee set ever. And he pops off, and he combos it into a pop off. So Soft goes, oh, I did it, and then, no, I didn't do it. God damn it. Okay, so again, this is just one of those arguments where I feel like everyone loses brain cells. So we're gonna cut the Twitter bullshit off right here. And by cut the Twitter bullshit off, I mean, we're gonna transition to talking about the only tweet on the matter you really need to care about. We're gonna go through and I'm gonna assess YCZ6, who I think is much smarter than everyone, involved in the previous discussion. I say this because we were both software engineers at the same company, which means if YCZ6 is smart, then that means that I'm smart as well. So any compliment that I deliver to YCZ6's intelligence is also a compliment to my own intelligence. All right, so use an 8-minute timer. That's what we've always done, and 2 minutes per stock is a nice round number. This is basically where Left and Mutaking are. Lower the timer to reduce the length of timeouts. That makes sense. This is the next step, right? The next logical step is, holy shit, we need less camping, because online ultimate something. How the fuck? Let's take this opportunity to say, how did Melee get dragged into this again? This makes sense to me. I mean, I think this is logical, right? You lower the length of the timer. I think that you got less of the fucking boring shit in the middle. All right, but now the brain cells are getting activated. Keep the current timer because lowering it incentivizes camping and playing for timeouts. I hope you guys are seeing now how this meme is basically echoing everything I just told you. But now the next step, we got to increase the timer to 12 minutes to further disincentivize camping. And let me tell you, this is a legitimate argument that people like Leffen and Mutaking will make because they've never seen Super Boom versus Gerson. This match, you might notice that this YouTube video is 52 minutes long. You might be thinking, wow, that's a long set, 52 minutes, that's a long set. This isn't a set. This is a single game. And the reason this is a single game is because in Super Smash Bros. 64, there is no timer by default. This game was so influential. Not only did this game single-handedly force the Smash 64 community to hack the game to add a timer, Toby Fox literally named an Undertale character after the set. Gerson Boom, and this is confirmed. This is confirmed because I have talked to Toby Fox. Gerson Boom is named after this set. Okay, so lower the timer because timeouts are hype. Okay, this is the soft versus shroomed argument. This is the soft versus shroomed argument, which you guys just saw. Keep the 8-minute timer because it's default in 20xxt and people will forget to change it. There we go. Now we're really reaching the levels of, you know. Next, lower the timer to incentivize people to play fast characters that can avoid getting camped and are fun to watch. Oh, we've got YCC in chat. Hang on. The logic here, so going back to this one, the logic here is that lowering the timer actually makes Melee more exciting because people won't play characters that get timed out like Peach. Why is Peach any worse with the lower timer? Lower timer equals... Oh, right, the Leffen argument. Right. The Leffen Mutaking argument. Right, lower timer equals camping. Lower timer is camping. If you don't want to get camped, you got to play a faster character, so you got to lower the timer. Okay, all right, fair. Okay, all right. This one was done at one point, right? Or at least it was threatened. So this was So this was a match where
if neither of them touches each other, they both get DQ'd. This is a one stock 3 minute.
You hear that? This was the tournament match. You ready? This happened. It was a match where neither player approached for the entire 8 minutes for reasons that I'm not going to get into in this YouTube video. Instead, go check out the Melee Stats channel and watch their YouTube video if you haven't already. Phenomenal video. Lower the timer is the next step. Lower the timer in the event of a timeout. Hold a vote on stream to determine who's camping. Hey, I'm fucking down for this. I'm fucking down for this. Can you imagine the content? Can you imagine the content, dude? You gotta do the little Ludwig polls. Like that. You know, do one of these. Do one of these. Just get some ones and twos in the chat. Really drives up chatting metrics. Look at that. People are voting 1 and 2, even though there literally isn't a set happening. Can you imagine? People are gonna get so excited. I think this is a great idea. I think we should literally do this. It's usually pretty obvious, right? Nah, but it kind of isn't. It kind of isn't. Michael versus Bananas, there's no way, right? There's no way to know. Neither one touched their controller. They both literally stood at the spawn points for the whole match. That one's tough. Then you got to go into the annals of history. You like, what was the history of Michael versus Bananas? Like, you literally wouldn't be able to vote on that match unless you had context from their previous tournament sets. And that's asking a lot of the viewer. Next, we have get rid of the timer entirely. Reward players who keep track of random manually. Okay, well, this is rewarding an entirely different skill set. I was not sure where this sentence was going, but let me tell you, getting rid of the timer entirely doesn't work. Next, reduce the timer to this is another one that's actually been, well, this has been implemented. This was actually done. This was a bracket that happened at Smash Summit 9, right? This is Sammy Singles. Reduce the timer to 1 minute, stocks to 1, and run best of 7 on Yoshi's Story only. And who won the tournament? Wasn't it AMSA? Didn't AMSA literally win this tournament? The reality is, here's the reality. You want to know who benefits from this format? It has nothing to do with timeouts. The person who benefits on this format is the player whose character does the best on Yoshi's Story. That's the reality of this format. It has nothing to do with the fucking timer. All right, next we have run timeout instead of stock matches, so matches are consistent length. Love consistency. Yeah, well, you know what this does? This makes it really easy to keep track of, like really easy for scheduling tournaments. Never again will any tournament ever fall behind schedule because they will literally have it all mapped out. For a tournament to fall behind schedule with this rule set, like technology would have to fail. You know, the machine would have to break down. Next, it's reduce the timer to 1 minute, but keep the stock count so timeouts are the only viable win condition, noting that, well, this is the same as running a time match, right? I think this is the same as running a time match. I think this is the same as this. I think this is just, you just run a 1 minute time match. I think that's the same thing. But then the stock count is there because it's easier to keep track of. It's easier to see who's winning. I don't know. And then finally, allow players to counterpick the time limit. This actually reminds me of a dream I had. I had a dream a long time ago where I was in a Melee tournament. And for some reason, I was like a Mario main or something. I was playing against Hugo in a tournament set. And I won game 1 with my Mario, which doesn't make any sense because I don't think I would take a game off of Hugo's Samus with my Mario. But anyway, I won game 1 with my Mario. And Hug said, I counterpick Mike Hayes. And I'm like, what do you mean you counterpick Mike Hayes? And Mike Hayes walks over. I'm in like SoCal. I traveled to SoCal tournament. And Mike Hayes walks over and plugs his controller in. And for game 2, it's now a 2v1. And I was like, holy fuck. And I remember thinking in the dream, I was like, dude, this is the smartest counterpick. Like, people keep counterpicking me to like FD. This counterpick is so much harder than all those other counterpicks people are doing. This is a big brain counterpick. And in the dream, I was like, fuck, I gotta beat these guys, you know? I wasn't questioning it. I didn't think to call over Tio. Because you know, dreams are a little fucking weird. This is a real dream I had. This is an actual fucking dream I had. It was a long time ago. And I think I went on to lose the set. Where do I actually stand on this spectrum? I'm kind of with PTAS. I think we should definitely experiment. I think there's no harm in experimenting. I don't know. We ran Sammy Singles at Summit. If nothing else, it was fun content. I don't know. Just do it. It's not that big a deal. It's always been theory crafted. Like, people love to theory craft this because, again, I will end this discussion by saying that the whole Mewtwo Leffen argument of shortening the timer incentivizes people to play for timeouts. Actually, a big part of the reason I don't like that argument, the reason I don't like the argument is it is an argument that comes from a place of like, I don't have faith in people to play to win. Because what M2K is really saying is, oh, people aren't patient enough on average to play for a timeout with an 8-minute timer, but they will be patient enough to play for a timeout with a 5-minute timer. And we, first of all, that argument basically says smashers are impatient, which is that it's a negative connotation, or it's like you're making an unfair negative assumption about the smasher. I mean, I think it could be well-founded, but we don't know because we've never tested it. Right? It's making an unfair negative assumption about the average Smash player with no real data to back it up. And I would go further to say there is data to back it up. We lived through Brawl. Brawl was a game where many fucking matches went to time with an 8-minute timer. I showed off on stream the other day, M2K versus Masha. This was a match that I watched in person at a tournament that I attended in Japan, and it was a fucking... Game 1 was a timeout where Mewtwo actually lost because he forgot about the double Scrooging rule. You can't go under the stage 2 times in a row. There was an 8-minute timer in Brawl, and people played for timeout all the fucking time. So, like, I don't really understand. I think it doesn't make any sense to make an argument making an unfair assumption about smashers when I would say we actually have data that I don't think it holds. People played for timeouts all the time in this game, and that was because it was a good strategy to win. I don't think camping is as strong in Melee, and I think that's a bigger reason as to why people don't play for timeouts. Incentivized camping is weird framing in this meme. It's saying it makes timeouts easier is more accurate. Yeah, I don't think it incentivizes. I agree. I think timeouts here. Yeah, no, great point. Splash damage. I think the discrepancy that I would want to point out here is that timeouts and camping are 2 different things. And I would say that, like with Sammy Singles, timeouts are realistic, right? Sammy Singles, again, the time format that you're playing for a minute or 99 seconds or whatever it is. This thing, 1 minute stocks to 1, best of 7 on Yoshi's Story. You get a lot of timeouts, but there's not much camping. So, I would say that timeouts and camping are 2 things that people associate with each other when really they're 2 separate things. And lowering the timer might even help to decouple, aka break apart the concept of camping and timeouts, where you can have sets that aren't necessarily campy at all, but they end up actually getting, like, you could argue, for example, that Peach Dittos on Dreamland would be more entertaining because after 4 minutes of play, the Peaches would really have an incentive to approach each other. It would incentivize approaching, not camping. Whereas if you watched, Polish versus Kalamazoo, those matches were taking a really fucking long time because after 4 minutes passed, they did not have an incentive to approach. So yeah, they would incentivize timeouts, but they would incentivize approaching because you would have a real fucking reason to engage after not that much time. That's an argument that I don't see anyone else bringing up. He's on the platform, go to the top platform. Okay, he's camping at 4 minutes, right? He's camping at 4 minutes. So what I'm saying is, if this was a 5-minute timer, it would be the same. The person in the lead would have the exact same incentive structure. Polish is camping because it is the right thing to do with an 8-minute timer. It would still be the right thing to do with a 5-minute timer. However, the difference with a 5-minute timer is Kalamazoo, who is losing in this situation, would have a stronger incentive to approach. So on a net basis, between the 2 players, there would be a higher amount of incentive to approach. Polish's incentive remains exactly the same. He should continue to camp. Kalamazoo is more pressed to approach, and so they end up fighting more. That is what I'm saying. Isn't forcing a player to approach even disadvantage kind of whack because of how low the timer is? But that's what we're trying to do, right? That's what, again, circling back to the original argument, that's what Mewtwo was saying. Mewtwo was saying that we want to incentivize, or Leffen at least was saying, we want to incentivize, we don't want a lower timer because that's going to incentivize camping. So maybe you're right, but I'm specifically addressing this argument. I'm addressing this argument. This is the argument I'm addressing. I'm addressing the argument that a lower timer incentivizes camping. I'm saying I don't even necessarily think that's true, that I think on a net basis between the 2 players, that might not even be true. It actually might net incentivize approaching. That's what I'm saying. Right? That's what I'm saying.